Spending an extra day in Venice is a good idea, especially during the Carnevale season. The 10-day festival brings back the glory of the traditional Venetian Republic.
Well, on the map it's called Vicenza, but according to its residents, it's the city of Andrea Palladio, one of the world's most famous architects.
And here in Verona on Via Capello, you can visit Juliet's home. This is the same balcony where legend has it that Romeo climbed up to.
In reality, this is a restored 13th century inn. Throngs of tourists come here to see the simple facade and stand in the small balcony.
Hi everyone, welcome to an exciting edition of Destinations. We're glad you're along for the ride. I'm your host, Kane Farabaugh.
And I'm Gina Gray. And Kane, we should probably tell everybody where we're at and what we're doing here.
All right, the first clue is we're taking part in a festival that usually winds up right before the beginning of the Lent season.
Now in the United States, down south, they call it Mardi Gras.
And if you were in the country of Brazil, they'd call this festival Carnevale, but we're in the country of Italy, and here they call it
Carnevale.
That's right. Right now we're in the lovely city of Venice, so let's take time to pause and admire the location.
Behind us is the world-famous St. Mark's Basilica, which is in St. Mark's Square, the center of Venice.
That's right. We're going to take a tour through Venice with Leah Tedrow and Chris Robinson.
It's known as the City of Love, but when most people think of Venice, they think of gondolas, and with good reason. The canals of Venice are filled with hundreds of these chariots of love. Local legend has it that gondoliers are born with webbed feet to help them walk on water. Their intimate knowledge of the city's waterways is still passed down from father to son. The gondola was essential for the transport of goods from markets, but today is largely used as a pleasure craft.
Gondolas aren't the only way into the city. You can drive into Venice, but it's expensive. The average cost of parking a Tricato parking garage is around $18. The cheapest and easiest way into the city is to take the train. And once you arrive here, you'll find a Vaporetto or water bus taxi right outside. Water bus stops run on a regular schedule. The average ticket price is between $2 and $3. No matter where you need to go, the water bus will get you there. It's virtually impossible to get lost for very long.
Venice's roots as a trade center for Central Europe dates back to the Middle Ages. It's still a shopper's haven. One warning about shopping in Venice: all sales are final. Shopkeepers still maintain that merchant philosophy from their ancestors.
Venice has remained virtually unchanged for the last 500 years. The city's outline only recently started to undergo changes. While walking around the city, you may begin to wonder how it stayed intact for so many years. The answer lies in its engineering.
Venice is built on a patchwork of more than 100 low-lying islands in the middle of a swampy lagoon. Early Venetian builders evolved a construction technique which is unique to this city. Pinewood piles are driven 25 feet into the ground, resting on a solid layer of clay. Marble, which is resistant to seawater, seals the city's foundation. Construction here began over 1,000 years ago, with some of the most famous structures located here near the Piazza San Marco. Named after the patron St. Mark, this piazza is the political and judicial nerve center of Venice. Rich in Renaissance and Gothic architecture, the piazza's eastern end is dominated by two of the city's most important historical sites, the Basilica and the Doge's Palace.
And if you want to sit and admire the buildings, you can come here to the Quadri Cafe. The cafe was a favorite haunt of Austrian troops during the occupation because of the great views of the Basilica and the Gulf of Venice.
And it's here near the boardwalk that you can catch a water taxi to one of the oldest and most famous glass factories on the islands of Murano. The glass factories used to be located on the islands of Venice, but after several serious fires, the factories moved to Murano in 1291. Murano owes its prosperity entirely to glass, and the main attraction of a trip to Murano is a demonstration of the glass blowing technique. Visitors watch while glass masters turn a blob of molten paste into beautiful works of art. Each master has his own unique way of shaping glass, and their techniques are closely guarded. The masters normally only teach one apprentice their methods. You could quite easily spend an entire day here on Murano. However, to really take in the sights and sounds of Venice, travelers might want to consider spending an extra day in this historic city.
Spending an extra day in Venice is a good idea, especially during the Carnevale season. The 10-day festival brings back the glory of the traditional Venetian Republic. For centuries, Venetians have worn their traditional Carnevale costumes. City documents first mentioned Carnival in the year 1094. 2 centuries later, in 1296, the Senate declared Mardi Gras, the last day before Ash Wednesday, a holiday. The Venetian Carnival actually started in October, matching the time when the theaters opened their seasons, lasting for months. Everybody from ordinary people to aristocracy wore masks and stayed incognito. In 1797, Napoleon stopped the carnival festivities with the ending of the Venetian Republic. 200 years later, in 1979, the Carnival of Venice Committee brought back the splendor of the past. Now, more than 900 years since it all began, traditional carnival goers pose for tourists and act out their own form of theater amid the splendor of St. Mark's Square. For Destinations, I'm Larry Kreider.
You know, Kane, Carnevale is such a crazy time, and it doesn't seem like we're really getting into the spirit of things.
Well, you know what? We can solve it real quick. All you need to do is put on one of these. I don't know. I think black and blue is your color, Gina.
I think so.
It's screaming me and you. You know, Carnevale is a crazy time of year, and it happens all over the country. And one place we get to visit next is the Puglia region of Italy, and Carnevale with Gary Piccarello.
Carnevale is celebrated the world over, and the origins of this party to end all parties is unique to each particular city or town. In the Puglia region, the town of Puttagnano has placed a lot of emphasis on this celebration. Its reason for doing so beginning a long time ago.
The first recorded date we have of Puttagnano celebrating Carnevale is in the year 1394. The festival started out as a religious procession in honor of Saint Stefano, who is the patron saint of Puttagnano.
Carnevale is famous for the imaginative floats and masks involved. In the festival's earliest days, the townsfolk of Puttagnano used horse-drawn carts with clowns and other personalities riding on top, usually dressed up in costumes made of woven flax and hay. Sometime in the early 1930s, papier-mâché was introduced, and with it came a steady progression of creative figures and masks. In Puttagnano, at least, what started out as a religious event evolved into an opportunity for the townsfolk to express their frustrations with the government and politics in general.
I think this is what sets the Puttagnano celebration apart. I can't speak for other towns or cities, but with the parades, it's a safe way to voice our opinions, even more so hundreds of years ago when there was virtually no freedom of speech.
has its Mardi Gras, and Venice has its own version of Carnevale as well. But the small town of Puttagnano more than holds its own when it lays claim to being the party capital of southern Italy.
Reporting from the town of Puttagnano during Carnevale, I'm Air Force Sergeant Gary Piccirillo for Destinations.
The play Romeo and Juliet has been translated into virtually every language around the world. And here in Verona on Via Capella, you can visit Juliet's home. This is the same balcony where legend has it that Romeo climbed up to.
School bus safety tips. Stay in your seat while the bus is moving. Keep the aisle free of books and bags. A message from Dodge Europe Transportation Division and school bus officers.
Ready, steady, go!
A scenic gondola ride through the canals of Venice proves just how romantic a country Italy can be.
That's right, Kane, and one of the most famous love stories in the world is set in an Italian city.
The city of Verona. Eric Shadowins and Leah Tedrow show us how love is in the air.
It's the second largest city in the Veneto region of Italy and one of the most prosperous. The Roman ruins here are second only to those of Rome itself.
But Verona's fame comes from a tragic love story as old as time. The story of the two star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet, originated in Verona. The story was first written by Luigi di Prato of Vicenza in the 1520s and was the inspiration for Shakespeare's play. The play Romeo and Juliet has been translated into virtually every language around the world. And here in Verona on Via Capella, you can visit Juliet's home. This is the same balcony where legend has it that Romeo climbed up to.
In reality, this is a restored 13th century inn. Throngs of tourists come here to see the simple facade and stand in the small balcony. It's almost impossible to miss the graffiti on the walls, but it's not your average graffiti. This graffiti pertains to love.
If you're into more classic architecture, you're in luck. Castel Vecchio is right around the corner. This castle, with its massive walls, towers, turrets, and a vast courtyard, was built in 1354 for Verona's longest reigning lord, Can Grande II della Scala. Today, it houses one of the finest art galleries in the Veneto and sits picturesquely on the banks of the Adige River. From here, your next stop is only a couple of blocks away, Verona's enormous Roman Arena. Verona's Roman amphitheater was completed in 30 AD and is the third largest in the world. The arena held almost 16,000 people, the entire population of Roman Verona, and was then used for gladiatorial combats and mock battles. It is virtually intact today and is the only arena still in use. Annually, the amphitheater is host to fairs, bullfights, concerts, and dynamic opera productions. If you do go, be sure to rent or take a cushion. Sitting on 2,000-year-old marble for any length of time can be quite an ordeal.
By the time you visited Castel Vecchio, Juliet's house, and the arena, it's time to eat lunch. And what better place than here in the Piazza Signore at Ristorante Dante's. Let's go inside and see what they're cooking up. Gnocchi is one of the most popular dishes in northern Italy and originated here in Verona. To make it, you start with mashed up potatoes, add eggs, flour, and Parmesan cheese. Roll it into a dough, cut it into cubes, and drop into boiling salt water. Wait until they surface and toss into a pan with a meat sauce of your preference and serve. Absolutely delicious. In fact, gnocchi is such a part of the local culture that there's an old traditional saying that goes, "Ridi ridi che la mamma ha fatto e gnocchi," which translates into "Be happy, mama's making gnocchi." And after you've finished eating, you can walk right outside the restaurant and see the statue of Dante, the favorite poet of the ruling Della Scala family. Dante's most famous work is the Divine Comedy, who he coincidentally dedicated to Can Grande I Della Scala. And rising from the western side of the piazza is the Torre de Lamberti, or Lamberti Tower. For those unafraid of a little exercise, you can climb to the top of this 275-foot tower and view an unparalleled panorama of the Alps.
Many of Verona's attractions are centrally located and well within walking distance of each other. A unique aspect of the city are the hills that surround her, offering you this bird's eye view.
If you're planning on visiting Verona, you can easily see all that she has to offer in one day. Well, that concludes our journey here in Verona. For Destinations, I'm Army Sergeant Leah Tedrow.
And I'm Army Sergeant Eric Shadowins. Back to you.
You know, Kane, when a lot of people think about famous European architecture, they think about the Colosseum in Rome or the Parthenon in Greece.
The Veneto region of Italy has many architectural wonders right on the doorstep of the Vicenza military community. And we had a chance to see some of those sites with Leah Tedrow and Aaron Talley.
Thanks, Kane. Well, on the map it's called Vicenza, but according to its residents, it's the city of Andrea Palladio, one of the world's most famous architects. Visitors can see examples of his work throughout downtown Vicenza, but none draw bigger crowds than the Teatro Olimpico. Finished in 1585, it was the world's first indoor theater. Standing on this historic stage, I couldn't help but recite a few lines of Sophocles. My children, latest born of Cadmus old, why sit ye here as suppliants? In your hand branches of olives filleted with wool? Thus begins the Greek tragedy Oedipus Rex, the first play ever performed in the Teatro Olimpico over 400 years ago. The world-famous stage still plays host to theater productions of all kinds, but you can't get over the beauty of this incredible building when you realize the people were sitting in the same seats, looking at the same stage during that historic occasion back in 1585. In the Greek tragedy, Oedipus Rex was a king looking for the source of a plague on his city. It's not a coincidence that that was the first play chosen to be done here in the Teatro, because back in 1426, Vicenza had a similar problem.
Legend has it that the Virgin Mary appeared to a young girl in 1426 to announce that Vicenza would be spared from further plague if a church was built in the very spot where she appeared. The girl's vision helped bring hope to a city that had been ravaged by plague for 3 years. To commemorate that event, the people of Vicenza came together to build this, the Basilica di Montberica. The basilica itself was completed in the 15th century and enlarged in the 18th. The Baroque hilltop church sits overlooking downtown Vicenza, where another historic building stands that was once the private residence of a man who never received the credit he was due. If you've ever studied explorers, I'm sure that you've heard of Magellan, the first man to sail around the world. What you probably don't know is that he died halfway through that journey. The man that took over his expedition, finished the mission, and wrote his story is Antonio Pigafetta, who lived here on a quiet side street in the center of Vicenza. The house was built in 1481, and it's fashioned in the elaborate Spanish Gothic style of the time. The only reminder of the owner, Antonio Pigafetti, is a single statue near the center of downtown Vicenza, a city full of entertaining history. Like most Italian cities, Vicenza is a beautiful place to just walk around and explore. But what makes it so unique is the stunning architecture of Andrea Palladio.
Like this villa right behind us. And the amazing thing is, it's not a museum. Somebody actually lives in that house. Can you imagine coming home to this? The classic temple front of columns and arches is typical of what became known as the Palladian style of architecture. But Palladio's best-known work is located just outside of downtown Vicenza, the world-famous Via Rotonda. This beautiful home is completely symmetrical, with all four sides exactly the same. And yes, I did say home. Someone lives here, too. But you can still see the historical villa for a small fee. And if it looks familiar, there's a good reason for that. Our third president, Thomas Jefferson, used the rotunda as a model for his Virginia estate, Monticello.
Gina, this place is absolutely incredible. There's so much to see and do here at Carnevale in Venice. We couldn't possibly fit it all into one show.
Well, Kane, although it's almost over this year, Carnevale happens every year, right before Lent, so we hope to see you back next year.
I'm a big fan, and hopefully I will be here. But in the meantime, if you've got a destination story idea and you'd like us to come cover a story near you, it's easy to get in touch with us. Basically, all you have to do is drop us an email. Our email address is destinations@afneurope.net. We always love to hear from you, so make sure that you drop us a line. For Destinations here at Carnevale in Venice, I'm Kane Farabaugh.
I'm Gina Gray. Thanks for joining us on Destinations.